The biggest problem I have with dealing with this, and I've said it to several groups that I've been with, and I've said it to you too. The thing that bothers me the most is that the unknown can happen that I don't have any control over. I've never known that in my life. Never, ever, ever. I've been in military service. When the Berlin crisis took place back when most of you weren't even born then. I was 61 and 62, and I was there. I saw, you did. And that's something that you don't ever forget. Even with the Alzheimer, you don't ever forget that stuff. And little things snips at it all the time, and whatever. I know, I think I pretty well know what I can do, and specifically I know what I cannot do. And I was telling him just a few moments ago, I don't drive anymore. You know why I don't drive? Very simple thing. I volunteer on Mondays and Fridays at the zoo. And I was driving over to the zoo a couple years ago, driving down the street that goes right down towards the zoo. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. Fortunately, I slammed on the brakes, and when I did, a kid on a bicycle was right there. I could not have missed him by more than 3 feet. When I got myself back together, I turned the car around, I drove back home, gave the keys to Barb, said, that's the end of it. And I haven't driven a car, and I will not ever drive a car. And I think, I guess dealing with this, I've got to always try to understand that my mental set is not the same as somebody who doesn't have this. And so I've got to be careful about what I do. But I have fortunately a lot of people around me, and I get to do a lot of things and participate in a lot of things, but I limit what I try to do so that I don't go beyond what my capability is. And that's the end of the line.
Excellent. And good for you. Yeah, thank you, Bud. You know, that might be a good jumping off point. Maybe we should go back across. Bud said the biggest problem. We did cover this in the videos, but Dave, the biggest problem having this disease for you, what is annoying, what is frustrating, what is your biggest problem with it?
Well, the word frustration comes to mind. You mentioned it, Clark. You mentioned it also, but it's incredibly difficult when you realize that you cannot perform as you were able to before. When you know something, you just can't remember what it's called. When you know a name, you just can't remember it. It's very frustrating. Things that I'm told a day ago, a few hours ago, no recollection of it. I can remember things from a long time ago. It's all typical things that you've all heard of and are very well aware of, but the frustration that goes along with it is intense. And a lot of times my wife will just say to me, well, just forget it, just move on. It's almost impossible to just put it behind you because it's happened so frequently. So the frustration is intense. There's no question about that. I'm okay with not knowing the time course of my illness. In fact, I think that's actually a damn good thing, because I can have, especially because of my age, my wife always says she likes to think that I've got another 20, 30 years ahead of me. That would be wonderful. But not knowing is actually, in my mind, not so bad, because maybe I do have a long time ahead of me, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to be fixated in knowing I've got such and such until I'm in this stage or whatever. Especially because, as all of you know, the later stages are dismal. And that's where I mean, it's probably not really so bad for the patient. It's a lot worse for the caregivers, for the people we interact with, and that's what's just so horrendous for everybody who needs to watch that and see what happens to us and so forth. And it affects our plans and so forth, which I'm not going to get into here. But so I think that I'm okay with not knowing how long I'm going to be like this. I definitely notice changes. I'm acutely aware of when things are becoming more difficult for me. There's no question about it. But we have worked hard to accommodate my needs as much as possible. I am working hard to be flexible, though that's very difficult for an Alzheimer patient, because we do better when we're sort of on schedules, when things are routine and so forth. Everybody with disease, or the caregivers, know this for a fact. We have trouble in big groups when people are talking and so forth. Bud and I were talking earlier, and there's all these before we started, and there are all these conversations, all this background noise, and I'm trying so hard to concentrate on what Bud was saying, and I'm having so much trouble because there's so much else that's distracting. That's a real problem for us. There are a number of things like that which are difficult for the Alzheimer's patient, and we have to find ways to deal with it, or we just withdraw. We sort of just become quiet. I know what happens when we're with our kids and so forth, and they're all chatting, all family discussions going on, and you can't get a word in edgewise, because by the time you think about what you want to say, they're on to something else, another topic. So it's a little bit late. So that is a little difficult too. It comes back to the frustration, though, of the whole thing. Anyway.
It's excellent.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
leave it at that.
Thank you for that insight. Yeah. Michael, how about yourself? What do you? What's the hardest part of having the disease for you?
In the simplest form I can think of is the burden that I place on my caregiver, my family, who have just been wonderful about the way they've closed together. I have 4 sons. I hear from them all the time. One of them I hear from all the time. And he straightens me out. My wife tries to keep me on the track, and so that's my biggest frustration. Of course, not doing the things that I used to do because I just don't care anymore. That's another very difficult thing, and it cuts into your time.
Excellent. Thank you. Jane, how about for you? What's your biggest problem having the disease? What do you find the most annoying?
Trying to remember what day of the week it is every day.
Oh, really?
But I figure it out. I have my husband to help me out a lot. And I attribute my happiness to my husband.
Excellent. Jack?
I think my biggest problem is not being able to drive. And for all of you that drive, try it someday. I mean, I have to rely on my wife Linda, who's very good about it. But I think there are certain things driving that I can do. But it would be very foolish on my part, because I am told that if I get in an accident, and sooner or later they know what my medical background is, I'm wrong. So thank you, Linda, for driving me everywhere. I'm going to sneak out someday.
No.
Betty?
Yes, sir. You can take away the roof of my house, but don't take away my calendar. At my front door, I have a table similar to that, and I have the calendar right there, and if I have a telephone call, I immediately get up and write it in the proper square. But then, if it's something that's really important, like today's meeting, this is what I do. I take a paper clip and I sit, now she told me this at our last meeting, but I saw it every day, but before I go out the door, I check to see if I have a luncheon date or if I have something like this, and it's worked for me. I do live alone, and I have to pay attention to what I have going, and I have an opportunity of taking 2 friends to the airport on Saturday. I'm an early riser. I have to pick them up at 4:30 in the morning. But my point is, it's a family get-together, so this, to be safe, I will be up before the alarm goes off. But I will ask them to call me to make sure, because it will affect them if that one day I happen to sleep in. So my calendar is my most important thing. And that's it.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Betty.